Good morning. It is really a great honor and pleasure to be here in front of such an enlightened and interested audience, and most in particular to be here side by side with some of my best good old friends that I have been with for quite some time. Well, I could not say that directly of Mr. Czarniecki, but he is a young man, but I am a very good friend for a very long time in the European Parliament of his father, Richard Czarniecki, who is Vice President of the European Parliament in our days. And we were together in creating the Friends of a Free Iran in the European Parliament. I was the main founder, together with Mr. Struan Stevenson, 15 years ago. Mr. Tarek Fatah, whom I had the pleasure to meet several times and to learn a lot from him, especially on his absolutely fantastic communication skills. I have just had a glimpse of what he has been doing with his show in India, the Fatwa Fatah, which is an incredible idea, and which exactly goes to the core of the issue that he just raised, the issue of the ideology. And him, as a Muslim, he is the one who can explain to a lot of people here in our Western societies that are completely putting things upside down. What is Islamophobia? Islamophobia is not to accept the sayings of a mullah that claims he has been enlightened to do so by whatever reason, or Islamophobia are those who turn their eyes when a woman or any person in a Muslim country are mistreated, are enslaved, are beaten, are flogged, are assassinated. I think that the real Islamophobes are, for instance, these ladies from the Swedish government that visited Iran and put a veil on their heads, insulting all of the Iranian Muslim women that from the very start of the so-called Islamic Revolution in Iran staged, protested for their freedom of wearing whatever they wanted to have. So this is a very good example of the way that here in the West we are turning everything upside down. We are turning what is in fact a racist attitude. Because I would like to ask, what is in the back of the mind of this lady that thinks that, okay, we cannot criticize Iran or any of the other Islamist countries because this would be Islamophobia? What is in the back of her mind? The back of her mind is that the woman, if she's Iranian, if she's Pakistani, if she's Saudi, she's inferior. She doesn't have a choice to wear what she wants. She cannot be free to even to drive a car in some circumstances. She has to be in the back of the bus, as it is the case in Iran. She has to cover her head, and she might be beaten. But because she is not a woman, or she's a woman of an inferior, sort of inferior race or condition. This is pure racism, and I would like to state that the Swedish authorities, which are just the last ones doing this, and the ones that have been more vocal on this direction, they are the ones who are Islamophobes. They are acting in a racist, disgusting way, and they should be ashamed of what they have been doing. So, but this is, you know, a reaction I think it was necessary to make on this stage of the conversation. It's true I am the director of South Asia Democratic Forum, which is a think tank that is focused on South Asia, understood as the countries that make part of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Within the United Nations, there are some organizations that consider Iran to be part of South Asia. That's not the case of SADF. And so where I am here not within my SADF mandate, but on the mandate of Arch Humankind. Arch Humankind is the Alliance to Renew Cooperation Among Humankind. This is an association registered in Belgium, in Brussels, more precisely, and from there, Arch Humankind gave rise to a specialized think tank, which is SADF. But Arch Humankind exists, has not been so active up to now as SADF. Perhaps things will change in the near future, hopefully so. And Arch Humankind is something I, with some friends, launched in 2010, exactly after I finished my presence in the European Parliament. And it means Alliance to Renew Cooperation Among Humankind. It's a very vast enterprise. It is dedicated to a lot of things. For instance, environmental issues, well, what we called at the time 7 Ws. I'm not going to explain what is Arch Humankind. We would not get out of here. But to tell you that Iran and the situation of human rights in Iran has been a main focus of Arch Humankind. We did produce last year a policy brief on the occasion of the nuclear deal made with Iran. We have been active in many conferences. I have been a couple of weeks ago in a conference in the House of Commons on the situation of human rights in Iran. Actually, I did there produce a report on the issue of drugs, which is a very, very important phenomenon I have been following for a lot of time, where the West is performing miserably in regard to Iran. We Arch Humankind, we are certainly going to put in the front of our audience the biggest, the great problems of human rights in Iran. Let me also make another small remark to the fact that this week the special rapporteur for the human rights situation in Iran, Ms. Azm Jahangir, she produced a very interesting, it was yesterday, she produced a very interesting report on the situation of human rights here in Geneva. You can consult, those of you who were not there, I was not there myself as well, can consult this in the internet. It's a very good state of play of what is going on in the country. Here in Geneva as well, and mainly Mr. Tahir Boumedra. Tahir Boumedra is a former official, former human rights responsible of UNAMI, that is the United Nations agency monitoring Iraq, and he resigned as a show of complete disagreement with the disrespect for human rights that this agency, UNAMI, has shown in Iraq. And he has been the main author of a very interesting document, inquiry into the 1988 mass executions in Iran, which is the most important crime against humanity that has not have any proper international follow-up. It was a mass murder, very well documented. The orders given by Ayatollah Khomeini were very clear. Everyone that is suspected of being affiliated with opposition parties should be killed, namely those who were in prison, those who were, for instance, with sentences of 2 or 3 years that they were there, they were killed. Tens of thousands of people were killed in 1988. It's one of the major massacres done in our times. What can I tell you of more important in my perspective on all these discussions? I fully agree with my dear colleague Tariq Fatah on the issue of ideology. The West obviously has responsibilities. The West, and you can go to the 19th century, if you look to the policy of the United Kingdom in India, you will see that they always had a soft spot for Islamic fanatics. At the time, the Deobandis, they never treated the Deobandis, which were one of the most extreme fanatic sects within Islam, born in the 19th century. They never treated them the way they should, and they always turned a blind eye or had always leniency regarding them. And the same was the case with the Wahhabism, the Wahhabi cult that had an alliance, it still has, with the crown of Saudi Arabia. They got to power. I mean, Saudi Arabia, as most of you know, is perhaps one of the only countries that got the name after the tribal sheikh that managed to grab the country. So it's because he was Saud, he was named Saud, that the country was named Saudi. It is very peculiar even from this perspective. And whoever saw Lawrence of Arabia, a very popular film, I think it must be something like 40 or 50 years. I think I saw it when I was quite young. Know or understood a bit the issue. The British were very happy to to have an alliance with the most extreme and fanatic of the Muslims in Arabia. There was no Saudi Arabia at this time, for fighting at this time against the Turks. But whatever. And afterwards, it was not the British were replaced a bit by the Americans, but the same logic. They were fine people to get very good oil deals. And whenever the West was confronted with left-wingers or communists, nationalists or Islamists, they always preferred the Islamists. They did it even in the less well-known historical episodes, as, for instance, the coup against Mossadegh. Those of you who are more acquainted with Iranian history know that from 53 to 56, there was a prime minister. I am counting on the indulgence of our moderator, but I can interrupt whenever. But these historical facts, are very important to understand why the West is doing what it is doing. Prime Minister Mossadegh was a nationalist, and he tried at the same time to confront the West, and mainly the British, that were still the traditional imperial power that controlled the oil of Iran, so nationalizing the oil of Iran. And, this is less well known, but it is at least as important, to confront the clergy. Because the clergy in Iran already had a lot of powers. It always managed to get in the boat of even in the constitutional revolution in the beginning of the 20th century. For instance, the speaker of the Majlis was always a cleric, someone coming from the Shia clergy in Iran. So he tried to confront both. And what the history does not say is that the plot, the conspiracy that overthrew him was fundamentally done by the clergy. There is, in Madame Albright, when she was Secretary of State, she decided to release, it was one of the single CIA reports that she released. She did not release, for instance, loads of them existing on South America and many others, but she did release this one on an obvious deal with Tehran of the CIA operative in the 50s in Iran that fundamentally claims that he managed to do all the coup and he is responsible for overthrowing Mossadegh. Whoever knows a bit about the history and the context knows that this is not true. The external forces that plotted, that were really the core of the plot against Mossadegh, were the British. Was the the MI5 and other agencies were not the Americans. CIA was secondary, absolutely secondary. And secondly, it was the mullah network that made a coup against Mossadegh. CIA, it was this report, it is a fantasy report from a civil servant that wants to put himself very high on the ladder saying, well, listen, how good I am. I could make 100,000 demonstration of Iranians just like that. This is simply not true, does not fit the historical reality of whoever knows Iran. And this is, of course, it was the mullahs in Iran were delighted with it because they were the main ones who plotted against Mossadegh. They always hated him. By the way, do you know any Mossadegh avenue or street or monument in Iran made by the mullahs? Of course not. I mean, he is absolutely hated by them. But they got this piece of propaganda very delighted, of course, because now they can always say, oh, we, that means them, the mullahs, we were the victims in the 50s of the CIA coup, which is a completely fantasy. And these fantasies continue to our world. How can we understand that in Hollywood, in the Oscar ceremony, someone was not there, sent a message from Tehran, and actually it is a film producer. There are several photographs showing him with all the leaders of the Iranian regime. He's obviously very much acquainted with the Iranian regime, fundamentally saying, claiming on the basis of human rights that the United States was a sham. This is unbelievable that such a thing was done in Hollywood, and people applauded. Like Tehran would be the light of human rights and the United States would be the devil. Whatever we might think about the President of the United States, this is completely absurd. Makes no sense whatsoever. This is putting things upside down. So, and of course, the episode of the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime is one other that is perhaps one of the most scandalous ones, because this office, this agency of the United Nations, that has a big office in Tehran, has been for 15 years trying to convince everyone that the West has to finance Iran to fight against drugs. This is a complete absurdity. And this is because Iran is the #1 executioner of people for drugs-related activities. Well, this is true to a large extent, that the Iranian authorities are killing drugs dealers, fundamentally those who are making competition for themselves, because they are the main drugs emporium. It's the IRGC, it's the Revolutionary Guards. This is another field where we really need to think it over. I think I already spoke a lot, so I will be ready for interacting in the debate whenever you want. Thank you very much for your attention.